First signs of the dedicated Xbox handheld UI has been spotted, which is very exciting because this is the future I want for Xbox user interfaces, that console experience. Will we be getting more 360 and PS3 remasters and remakes? The studio is ready. They want to do more of these games. Helldivers 2 and Arrowhead, they had an interesting call with Herman Hulst, the CEO of PlayStation, about why the game tanked at a certain point. We remember the whole controversy with the PSN account, so that's an interesting story. So we'll talk about that plus some other things. But before we do jump into it, if you do enjoy daily gaming news and content, hit the subscribe, share the video, like the video. I see many of you who watch on a daily basis are not subscribed, so please consider hitting the button if you do enjoy the content. But for now, let's jump into it. So the Xbox handheld, I am excited for the lineup of Xbox handhelds that we will be getting, because we are going to be getting different manufacturers, I believe, making Xbox handhelds, going through a certified for Xbox program, and they will be tailor-made for the Xbox ecosystem. And that to me is cool. I also think we are going to be getting a dedicated first-party Xbox handheld. But the thing that really matters to me most, it's not really who is making it. It's going to be how long does the battery last and what is the user experience on these things. Because I've owned a Steam Deck, I've owned an Asus ROG Ally. I much prefer playing on the Steam Deck, even though the gameplay experience and the games ran better on the Asus ROG Ally, simply just because it felt like a console in my hands and I didn't have to deal with the native Windows 11 on it. It was just a much better experience, and SteamOS is a very good operating system. And when Xbox is coming out here with their handhelds, I'm fully expecting them to do the same thing, to give you that handheld console experience in your hands, not having to really deal with Windows 11, because they want to make this thing for gaming. That is the main purpose of these handhelds. Well, it looks like we're getting our first signs here of just what that Xbox interface could look like here for Windows 11 handheld PCs. And this is exciting because this is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I have been waiting for and looking for. Specifically, this was spotted by Xenopanther on Blue Sky, and this is what we know so far about this UI. It says they reference what they have found here was that a language pack for an in-development build of Windows 11, and the references were found under new gaming posture, choose home app area. It also included here the boot into full screen experience at device startup and choose your full screen experience, which might imply that there may be multiple different game focused interfaces to choose from, and Windows Central can confirm that both strings are present. So that is, here's the Blue Sky post here that they did put out where they did show this off here. But I do believe that does confirm here that they are looking to give us some sort of experience here that is a console on the handle, not just Windows 11. And if you remember back in 2022, they had this hackathon thing here where they showed off just potentially what a console UI could look and function like on a handheld. On a smaller screen, you can kind of see it there with the games going across and then the bars of on top with the different applications that you can launch. And what we do see as well there is that Steam is on that list. And to me, this is exactly what I want with an Xbox handheld, is to have that console experience, that console UI with not really having to deal with native Windows 11, because that was one of the things that annoyed me with the Asus ROG Ally, was having to use it as just a regular PC. It was not intuitive at all. It was kind of always fiddling with things before you're able to jump into a game. One of the things that I'm looking for with these next-gen handhelds is how easy is it when I have an hour, 30 minutes or something to just quickly open up a game, jump into it without having to go through the previous experience, which was with Windows 11. So that's pretty exciting. I hope that this is not something that is just in there right now that won't come to fruition. I'm assuming they're testing it out, and this is going to be something that launches with these handhelds when they do come out, something with the Asus ROG Ally and everything, or whatever they do call it, the partnership with Xbox. When they do release that handheld, this will be the main thing that you do boot into. That is my hope. That my fingers are crossed that this will be the case. The other thing here as well is if you do take a look at the Xbox PC app and you kind of look at how it functions, and if you go into as well on xbox.com/play, you can tell that they are trying to unify everything to look and feel similar across all of these different screens. So my assumption here is the experience that we are going to be getting on the handhelds will be very similar to the experience you currently have on the compact mode on your desktop PC and on the xbox.com/play. Access to everything, access to your friends, your achievements, and everything that you get currently on the console. The bigger question, though, out of all of this is, will this be integrated in a way that you can still play the games that you currently own on your Xbox console? I don't know if that will be there at launch, but at some point, I think we will get to that. So exciting stuff there. I'm happy to see that this is the direction it looks like that they are going. And staying on the topic of handhelds, one of the major competitors here that is going to be going up against the Xbox handhelds is the Lenovo Legion Go series. We got a lineup of them at CES, including the Lenovo Legion Go S and the SteamOS version of this. Now, the SteamOS version is releasing in May. This is after the Windows 11 version that is about $730. Originally, it was supposed to be $499, but for some reason now they have increased the price of the Lenovo Legion Go S Steam OS version. Originally, it was supposed to be $499, and it looks like now with their official listings, they are listing it here at $549.99, and there's also a $750 configuration. So if you're expecting it to be $500 for the lower configuration, it looks like it is $50 more. To me, this is going to be the biggest competitor here to the Xbox handle. It is going to be the SteamOS versions of Lenovo. I'm sure at some point Asus will make one. All of these different manufacturers who are going to be using SteamOS on their handheld devices, that will be the major competitor. And I guess the big question here is, how is Xbox going to differentiate themselves from SteamOS? It'll be obviously be the functionality of the operating system. Is it better to use? And then there will have to be other things in there that they do throw in there. The major thing they're going to be appealing to are people who already own games on Xboxes, and then the ability to play those on the handheld as well as on your console will be massive. And then obviously Play Anywhere is a big thing, but with these SteamOS handhelds, if you have all your games on Steam, that kind of is the Play Anywhere feature, because you're just going to download it on SteamOS on your handheld and then as well on your PC. So there's a lot of questions here. It'll be interesting to see how Xbox does compete head to head here with the SteamOS PC handles, because I think Steam got out to it faster. I think they do have a major advantage in this market right now, and Xbox is going to have their work cut out for them if they do want to continue to compete with Steam going forward on the PC side of things. All right, let's talk Atomfall, because Atomfall is doing very well right now. It is on Xbox Game Pass, and the game has reached some big numbers already. This is Rebellion's CEO Jason Kingsley describing the achievement, speaking volumes for the creativity and dedication of the entire team at Rebellion. And that achievement is they've already smashed through 1.5 million players across all platforms, making it the most successful launch in Rebellion's 32-year history as a company. They say, we are delighted that so many players are enjoying Atomfall. Our size and stability mean that we can take risks to create something as different as Atomfall. Happily, that risk is paying off. As this game is on Game Pass, so I'm sure this has absolutely pushed that player count higher than it would have been if it wasn't on the service itself. I'm hearing so many good things about Atomfall. One game that I definitely do want to play. I just need to find the time with everything else that I'm playing right now. I'm really sunk into Assassin's Creed Shadows right now. Maybe this will be the next game I jump into once I do finish that. But good for them. I mean, cool to see here. I've seen very good reviews on it, and it looks like a very interesting setting, something with a lot of discovery and exploration, and just a mix of a bunch of different games that I do enjoy. So I'm sure when I do jump into Downfall, I will like it. Okay, let's go over here because this is a pretty interesting one. Remember Helldivers 2? How big of a success that game was when it first launched, with the player numbers that were continuously going up. Everybody was jumping into it on PC, on PlayStation 5. And then there was an entire controversy that surrounded this game. That was having to actually sign into PSN, even if you had purchased this game on Steam or playing it on the PC. The big issue with this was that people just did not want to make an account. And then the second thing was this cut out regions of the world who were previously able to access the game. Now they weren't able to because PSN was not available. It was a very stupid move by PlayStation, a very stupid move by Sony and the people up there. And we have an interesting article here, the developers behind it, because as we know, this is not a first-party PlayStation developer. This is a second-party game. It's funded by PlayStation, developed by a developer that PlayStation doesn't own. They had a chat here with Herman Hulst, and they had to explain why the player numbers were falling after this controversy. And it really, I think, makes you see kind of how out of touch some of the executives at PlayStation are. Even Herman Hulst himself, I think he has been on the end of a lot of failures lately, especially when you take a look at something like Concord, which if you were reading some of the stuff that was coming out about that, he seemed to be one of the people out there championing Concord. But here is the article. It says, Helldivers 2 developer reveals lowest point after PlayStation boss calls to discuss the early struggles. And specifically, they say, following its successful launch, Sony stated that the game would soon require players to sign into Steam version with a PlayStation Network account, and that all players would need to have linked their Steam PlayStation Network accounts by June 4th. The news was met with huge backlash. It was one of the biggest, I think, shifts in the Steam reviews, where it went to mostly negative at one point because people were kind of review bombing it because of this. Hit with over 100,000 negative reviews on Steam in less than 48 hours. And the negativity continued when the game was pulled from 150 countries on Steam due to them not having access to the PlayStation Network. And then obviously Sony saw this and realized how stupid of a decision that was, and they later reversed their decision. But many within Arrowhead and Sony feared the damage was done. Specifically, we have the Arrowhead boss Shams, your Johnny, opening up about what happened when all of this went down and how they're trying to revive the game. He says here, maybe the lowest point during my tenure so far. I had to explain to the CEO why things were in the state they were and what we were going to do to recover. And I had to say the awkward truth that there's nothing we can do in the short term, but in the long term, we have plans that will get us back on track. And they said that last May, Helldivers 2 will become PlayStation's fastest selling game launch ever. Sales far exceeding expectations, 12 million copies sold across PC and PS5 in the first 12 weeks. And the game also beat the 11 million copies sold in 10 weeks achieved by God of War Ragnarok in 2023. So of course, they did recover. This game is a commercial success, but that decision by Sony was just absolutely stupid. And then he had to explain to the CEO why things were going wrong. I'm sure that was a very awkward conversation, where the reality is this was a Sony decision that hurt this game more than anything that Arrowhead did end up doing. The other interesting stat here that they do mention is that the 11 million copies sold in 10 weeks, which is faster than beat God of War Ragnarok in 2023, which really shows you when PlayStation looks at their studios and they look at the games that they are developing, why they're so dead set on more games as a service and more multiplayer games, because those games are making more money. They can be more successful faster than their major first party single player experiences. And sometimes they may not cost as much to develop when you're not doing these just huge, massive cinematic experience with these expensive voice actors and everything within the game itself. You can really have better profit margins with these styles of games. They've tried it, of course. They've canceled a bunch. They obviously had to shut down Concord, but they need more games like Helldivers to be successful. But yes, that was an interesting time. That's just an absolutely stupid decision back then when that was made. All right, let's talk about this. This is some good news, and I hope these big publishers out there take Night Dive up on what they want to do here, which is standing ready to start remastering Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 era games. Here is what they say. They say Night Dive specializes in taking retro polygonal games that are no longer easily playable on modern hardware and releasing HD remasters on PC. Some of the games they have put out is The Thing, the Turok Trilogy, System Shock, Forsaken, Doom 64, Quake, Quake 2, Shadow Man, Blade Runner, PO'd, Rise of the Triad, and Star Wars Dark Forces. So, I mean, they have worked on a bunch of older games and made them up to modern times. And now they are ready to go out there and make more Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 games and remaster them. They say, we stand ready. This is Cooperman, Larry Cooperman, who is the director of business development at Night Dive, saying, I would begin asking a couple of questions. Was it Xbox 360 exclusive, or was there a PC version out too? Because that also changes things. The little preservation that's available, do we have source code? If so, what's the quality of the source code? How about the assets? Those are the kinds of considerations that we have there. That being said, there were some really good games that came out in that era that shouldn't be lost. They also add here that, to your point though, with a game like Haze, let's say hypothetically we had access to that and that was our big title for 2028, right? We would go to the original designers and we would say it didn't do as well as you had hoped. I'm sure you've had a lot of time to ruminate and to think about what you would have done differently. We've had these discussions before with the original developers on some of these games, and we've given them an opportunity to come back and say, this is what I would have done. In the case of System Shock 2 Remastered and a lot of these other games that we've been looking at, as soon as you bring them over, import them onto newer hardware, some of the problems start to clear themselves up, like frame rate, refresh rate, texture resolution, streaming, loading times. And specifically regarding the PS3, VGC had asked if the console's unique system architecture can make it more difficult to remaster. And you think it would, because that was a huge issue when the PS3 did launch. And he says, yes, definitely. I think that the architecture, I remember the talk when the system was first released of how difficult it was for developers to get it. And that's a big problem with backwards compatibility. This is a little bit of a different thing, but when the PS3 first came out, it was backwards compatible with the PS2. And after a while, they were like, well, that's really expensive because we're literally putting in the hardware for both systems in order for that to happen. Again, there wasn't an elegant solution where the PS3 hardware could run PS2 games. It's just not compatible. So there you have it. Night Dive Studios is ready. They want to make and remaster more PS3 and Xbox 360 era games, and I'm all for this. I think this should absolutely happen. Obviously, this always comes down to the accounting and the business side of things. How many people would actually play these games that they do remaster? Even the more niche ones that a lot of people will love to see come back, would those ever have a chance? The reality is probably not, simply because I don't think a lot of these companies think that they can make enough money off of it. But I hope some of bigger companies, I hope Xbox, I hope PlayStation, I hope anybody else out there takes Night Dive here up on their offer and we get more of these 360 and PS3 era games remastered. Because those games, the thing you can do with those that is just so easy is that a lot of the gameplay mechanics in those games still hold up very, very well, but they just need a little bit of a facelift. They need the higher frame rates and the resolutions and just maybe some additional textures added in there. We've seen just how good some of these older games can look on the current Xbox consoles with their backwards compatibility program. When they're in 4K, when they have the auto HDR stuff on that and the FPS boost, it makes a big difference. It's almost like you are playing a brand new game. So I really hope we do see more of that stuff come out. And finally, we have a big story here coming out of Zenimax and the union there for quality assurance workers. They have voted to authorize a strike against Microsoft. That does not mean that they are on strike yet, but they can go on strike without another vote going forward. So here is the story. They say Zenimax Workers United, representing over 300 quality assurance workers in both Maryland and Texas, have voted to authorize a strike against the company. And they had 95% of the votes that were in favor of the authorization. Specifically, they're doing it over return to work mandates, and they say underpayment as well. And they also go on here to say, none of us wishes that it had come to this, but if Microsoft and Zenimax continue to demonstrate at the bargaining table that they're unwilling to pay us fair wages for the value of our labor that it provides to our games, we'll be showing them just how valuable our labor is. And they also do say here that our in-house contractors have been working on minimal wages with no benefits, including no paid sick time. Workers are choosing not to start families because of the uncertainty of finances. We've released multiple titles while working fully remote. When will enough be enough? And that is kind of what they're arguing about. And they also say it's important to note that the union isn't officially going on strike. What the authorization vote means is that should negotiations continue to move forward without progress, the union can call a strike without another vote. Now, Microsoft has responded to this. A Microsoft spokesperson has responded here, given an update to Insider Gaming, saying, our quality assurance team is an integral part of our business and is key to our ability to deliver games our players will love. We respect the team's right to express their viewpoints and are deeply committed to reaching a fair and equitable resolution that acknowledges the team's contributions. There has been substantial progress over the course of the negotiations, reaching tentative agreements on a majority of the topics at the table. We have presented a package proposal that we believe is fair fair. If accepted, it will result in immediate compensation increases, even more robust benefits, and is in alignment to the company's hybrid model of 3 days in the office. We look forward to continuing this progress during negotiations. So we will see. Will this get to a full strike of the QA workers here at Zenimax? And if it does, what effect will this have on the current development of the games that are happening over there? Hopefully they get a deal done. Hopefully this all goes through and everybody ends up being happy and everything will be okay and nothing gets affected. But we will see what happens. Interesting here with everything happening within the gaming industry. It does make sense. I mean, you're seeing the layoffs, you're seeing everything bad happen to a lot of employees across the industry. I think we may see more of this stuff happening over the year. But on the video there, guys, if you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.